Hello, I'm your host, Neil Howard, here on Health Professional Radio. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to have a conversation with Dr. Jonathan Cheng, Vice President, Oncology Clinical Research at Merck Research Laboratories, joining us on the program this morning to talk about KEYTRUDA as a monotherapy for patients with metastatic small cell lung cancer, or SCLC. So welcome to the program, Dr. Cheng. How are you?
Great.
A bit of background about yourself, other than being a Vice President of Oncology there at Merck, and then we'll talk about small cell lung cancer.
Sure. So by training, I'm a medical oncologist, and I was in academia for approximately 11 years doing drug development. And then after that period, I did transition to Merck Pharmaceuticals to continue my drug development interest, and have been at Merck for around 10 years and have been able to participate in a number of different products, including KEYTRUDA.
What is it about small cell lung cancer that makes it different from other types of lung cancer?
Right. So the two most common types of lung cancer are small cell and non-small cell, affectionately named. And the differentiation is how they look under the microscope, whether it's the size, believe it or not, of the cancer cells. But clinically, they actually behave fairly distinctly, which is why the treatment options for non-small cell and small cell have been developed separately, because the nature of the disease can be very distinct. And so KEYTRUDA has been developed and explored differently in both these arenas, and the treatment options regarding chemotherapy has also been developed distinctly, for different chemotherapies are used for different types of lung cancer, whether it's small cell or non-small cell.
What's been the treatment for this type of small cell lung cancer? Right.
So historically, the platinum doublets, for example, cisplatin etoposide, have in the small cell, which is of help, but can treat the small cell type of lung cancer. Unfortunately, often these cancers then, once they become resistant to the chemotherapy and then start to progress. And unfortunately, small cell lung cancer is one of those diseases where the cancer can progress very rapidly, and people can go from feeling pretty okay to feeling pretty sick. Most times, for small cell, it can be initially chemo responsive, which is good, but unfortunately, resistant for extensive small cell, resistant to the chemotherapy develops in almost, virtually all patients, where they become resistant to the chemotherapy, and then they become harder and harder to treat effectively.
And so you've done other types of therapy, other types of chemotherapy, and the disease is still progressing. That's when you implement KEYTRUDA?
So that's correct. In the recent data that was, presented in the recent FDA approval, is in patients who have progressed on initial therapy and then a second therapy. So these are patients who unfortunately don't have that many treatment options, because chemotherapy has not shown it to be able to control their disease. And so the fact that KEYTRUDA is an available treatment is great news for small cell lung cancer patients. We are in parallel also studying the effects of KEYTRUDA when added to standard chemotherapy, the platinum doublets I mentioned. That's called KEYNOTE-604, and that's something that we are continue to understand, what the impact of adding it onto existing standards of care, existing chemotherapy, whether that might be a benefit compared to just the chemotherapy itself.
So initially, starting out with the KEYTRUDA as a supplemental therapy.
That's right, it's an add-on. If you remember, earlier we talked about the difference between small cell and non-small cell. So in non-small cell, we did a similar pattern, right? We went to initially kind of later lines of therapy where patients has a huge unmet medical need because chemotherapy has stopped working. And there we were able to show that it's active in later lines of therapy in non-small cell. And then when we added it to first-line chemotherapy, first-line therapy plus KEYTRUDA had a significant survival advantage compared to just chemotherapy. So that clinical trial was able to demonstrate that adding KEYTRUDA on early in the first treatment, in addition to chemotherapy, was a benefit in survival for patients. And so that was thought to be helpful to the academic and medical community to understand how to best utilize KEYTRUDA.
What patients were considered for that type of treatment in the study?
So there's, as you know, small cell and non-small cell. What I just referenced was the non-small cell. And so that was looked at in different histologies in non-small cell. It related to both the squamous histology, which was one clinical trial, and then also the non-squamous histology, which was a separate clinical trial. It has been shown to be effective in both those situations. It's not every type of non-small cell lung cancer. For example, there are types of non-small cell lung cancer that have a genetic mutation, for example, EGFR mutation or ALK mutation. So those haven't been studied as well, but the majority of non-small cells were shown to have benefit of KEYTRUDA adding on to pembrolizumab, or KEYTRUDA adding on to chemotherapy, Similarly, we are currently studying small cell in the same approach. The vast majority of patients who can tolerate chemotherapy for small cell lung cancer in KEYNOTE-64 are being evaluated in the clinical trial and seeing whether adding KEYTRUDA onto standard chemotherapy for what is used for the vast majority of patients with small cell and comparing it between the two arms is being evaluated. We anxiously wait to be able to understand those results.
In addition to that, what's next for Merck in the SCLC space?
Yeah, so the SCLC space, we are interested in trying to continue to improve. I think we are appreciative of collaborations with patients, their families, and the academic community in conducting clinical trials of interesting and novel agents, different combinations of adding on to kind of the backbone of KEYTRUDA or the backbone of chemotherapy or plus KEYTRUDA are being investigated. And also we are interested in looking at patients who don't respond and why they don't respond as another kind of understanding. And oftentimes small cell is divided into an earlier stage called limited stage, and then the more extensive metastatic, which is called extensive, and then understanding its activity in limited stage where there is the potential of cure, and then seeing if we can improve the potential cure is also an area of active interest for us to understand the impact of immunotherapy in small cell lung cancer.
Well, where can we go online and get some more information?
Right. So I think there are a number of resources to understand. For clinical trials, clinicaltrials.gov is a good resource to understand not just KEYTRUDA information trials, but also the information regarding other interesting research in both small cell as well as other places of lung cancer. For KEYTRUDA information, healthcare professionals can go to KEYTRUDA.com and they will have a wealth of information available regarding KEYTRUDA and its program and its potential information as well as its uses.
Dr. Cheng, thank you so much for joining us here on Health Professional Radio this morning.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Dr. Jonathan Cheng. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. And be sure and visit our affiliates page at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au.
Thank you for listening to Health Professional Radio. We're very proud to be an independent broadcaster providing our content free of charge to you, the listener. One of the ways that we're able to remain free and independent is by having people like you become patrons. You can support Health Professional Radio simply by visiting hpr.fm and clicking the button that says Become a Patron. Your patronage of even just $1 a month lets us know that you're there, which in turn makes us more valuable to advertisers. And, of course, if you're able to afford more, then we would certainly appreciate the support. My name is Toby Longhurst from Health Professional Radio. Please visit hpr.fm, click the Become a Patron button, and support us if you can.